Okay, here we go. We said fireside chat, and we're gonna make it a fireside chat. That's our fire today. We have horrendous winds coming down off the mountain, down the valley. They're from the south, and when that happens, we can't have a fire because it'll just blow the smoke in here. It'll be a smoke side fire or a chat instead of a fireside chat. So we can't do that, but we put the candle inside before and it blew it out, so we have it in front. Okay, okie doke, let's see. Today we're obviously in Spain, and yesterday's chat was in the Madrid area. So let me just try and help you with a little bit. If you're not familiar with the geography of Spain, think of the closest thing I can think of was a golf club, but a driver, a big driver that has a handle coming out. France and Europe are up that way, and Spain is more or less roundish, squarish, and so Madrid is smack dab in the middle. And so it's a peninsula, so it's surrounded by a coast, the Mediterranean and the ocean. Of course, there's Portugal on the side of it, but still, if you look at it, without taking that into consideration, it's just one roundish shape. And so from Madrid, the main highways go out like tire spokes in all directions. In fact, they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all the way around. And if you take highway number 1 north out of Madrid, it will eventually stop at the French border, which is where my parents lived, where I lived. We were literally 300 yards from the expressway as it turned into the customs booths and so forth. We were right on the French border. Much of what we saw in our window is France. And so that's National Highway number 1, and about halfway to our house, which there's about 300 miles, more or less 300 miles around Madrid is the coast, basically, in any direction, more or less. Then halfway up towards the north was the city of Burgos. And Burgos became an important place for their family, our family, and so forth. That is where we will be going today with the stories. And they had a missionary team there. This is all in the early mid-70s. And I was just getting into my teen years. And so we would go from the French border, we would travel to Burgos, which is halfway. So it's back then it was about a 3.5 hour drive. Now it's an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours because of the expressways. But back then it wasn't like that. And I don't remember how many times they would remember better than me, how many times we would go, but they had like an MK school for the kids. They had a band and music program, and when we would travel down there, that's where I had my first trumpet lessons, and we would join them for various concerts and so forth. So just to put you a little bit in the context of where we're going, from the center of Spain up north to the very cold city of Burgos, very ancient city, and I'll let Dad add anything he wants to that. Well, go ahead and take it from there.
Burgos was in the heart of what we called Old Castile. Conservative, traditional, cold. It was quite a city. But like all other cities in Spain, high-rise apartment buildings. And so we really did not want to see our 3 daughters grow up in a city in a high-rise apartment building. So we found a house in the town called Quintana Dueñas, which was just about 4 miles outside of the city of Burgos. It was an old farmhouse there. The town of Quintana Dueñas had about 250 people in it, but our house was 350 years old. The rock walls were 3 feet thick, and these houses were designed so that the animals lived upstairs and downstairs, and we lived upstairs. But we had ours converted. Of course, we let the girls live upstairs with us anyway. So, but anyway, that house holds a lot of history for us. We found out right away that Spain is not like Mexico and Chile. The people were a lot harder to reach with the gospel. In fact, we started right away in the city of Burgos distributing tracts and Gospels of John, trying to talk with people, and it was over 4 months before we saw the first person get saved. He was a shepherd, and he accepted Christ as his Savior. By the way, when we went to Burgos, it had a population of 110,000, and the only church in the city was a small Pentecostal church that had been started by a missionary from Finland. And so there was a tremendous need for the gospel there, but there was also a great deal of opposition. In our little town, one day I needed to install a heater, had to get the stovepipe that flew into the chimney, so my neighbor came over and helped me. His name was Demetrio, and he helped me install it. And then when we got through, he said, well, I guess you know I've committed a mortal sin today. And I said, well, what's that? Tell me about it. He said, the priest said that if we even as much as entered your house, it would be considered a mortal sin. And you know, we found out something very interesting though just 2 weeks ago when we came for the wedding, for Mark and Andrea's wedding. Mimi's twin sister Becky came also, and so Becky and Mimi drove down to Quintana Dueñas to get pictures of the town where they'd grown up, got a picture of our house, and they went to the neighbor to Demetrio's house right beside us, and of course he passed away some years back, but his son was there, Jaime, and he told our daughters and that I led him to the Lord when he was 14 years old, and he's still faithfully attending church and attending the services. And in fact, they got a picture of Jaime with the twin daughters. Could you show that, Andy?
This was taken 2 weeks ago when the sisters went, and that's Jaime in the picture. What would he be? Our age, or any idea?
He was older.
Older than us. Okay.
6 years older, I think.
But anyway, the fact that they actually found him still there 50 years later, or almost 50 years later, and the fact that he remembered Dad Allen leading him to the Lord and so forth. So that was an amazing story and an amazing picture when they brought that back. I was shocked.
Well, the meeting started slowly. I mean, we didn't see many results right at first, but then we saw several people get saved, particularly in the city of Burgos, and our second year there, we decided one day to one Sunday, on a Sunday afternoon, take the accordion and trumpet and go downtown Burgos to the Espolón, they call it, a promenade where hundreds and hundreds of people gathered on Sundays in the summertime. And so we got tracts for the young people, our daughters and the MKs and the people that had gotten saved, to let them distribute tracts. And Kerry Clark was with us. He played the trumpet and I had the accordion. We were on about
You played the trumpet in the
Kerry
street?
played the trumpet, yes, and I played the accordion downtown Burgos. And this was 1972. Franco was still living, of course.
Okay, we got there in 72.
Yes, you got there at the beginning, I believe, of 72. And well, that.
I don't remember what day.
So, but anyway, we went, started playing, and we were on about the third hymn, and 4 policemen came up and arrested us. They arrested Kerry and me. They didn't bother the people who were giving out tracts, but they said, we're going to the police, to the police headquarters, the jail. It's all together there. And I started to take the accordion off, and he said, no, I want the evidence on you. And he wouldn't let me take the accordion off. He wouldn't let Kerry put the trumpet down. So they marched us about 5 blocks down through the busy city of Burgos, 2 policemen in front of us and 2 behind, and they marched us about 5 blocks to police headquarters. So when we got there, I started to take the accordion off, and he said, no, we want the evidence on you. They had to call the police chief. It was Sunday and he was off. But see, the religious liberty law was passed in 1967, and that prompted our going to Spain because it was a door opener. Well, after about an hour, standing with the accordion, and by the way, they get pretty heavy after an hour and a half or 2 hours, counting the time we started back at the park. I've told some friends if we ever have another street meeting there, I'll take
You'll
my
play
flute.
something else. Your flute.
Take a flute. But anyway, but the police chief came in. Oh, by the way, when we were waiting for him, I told him, I said, well, we were playing some hymns. Would you like to hear the hymns we were playing? They said, no music in here. Well, the chief came in and they had a discussion, and he said, well, we do have a religious liberty law. He said, we're going to let you go this time. But he said, if you want to do what you're doing, you're going to have to go out in the country where there are no people. So with that,
Very smart, huh?
with that, they let us go. But we thought it was a rather interesting event. By the way, in their last chat, the subject came up of our mini Morris and a string bass. I guess I should say that we of course had musicians in our team, and music has been a very powerful tool on the mission field. So we did our first sacred recording, an LP of 33 1/3, vinyl record. We did our first recording in 1972.
John's on here. He knows what that is.
And so I had played the string bass for 2 years in the orchestra at Bob Jones, and I always liked that depth of sound that a bass will give it. And our voices, well, what the Lord had given us, we did the best we could on singing, but we knew that we could always add additional instruments to the recording and enhance the sound. So I was able to trade my viola for a string bass through a friend, an instrument repairman in Madrid. So he told us when to come to get the string bass, and Dennis and I I just wasn't thinking. We went
You will
down.
describe what a string bass is in case someone
Okay,
doesn't know.
well,
what it
it's
is.
the double bass or string bass. It's taller than I am, and it's the upright bass that you will see in the orchestras. So we went down to get that one, and we drove down in that mini Morris.
The wind blew the door open. Hang on, go ahead.
The instrument repairman lived only about 3 blocks from the Atocha train station. We should have gone by train, and it'd been a lot easier. But anyway, we got the string bass down to the street, and we were trying to put it in that mini Morris. We had the seats double down. We had all 4 doors open. We were trying every angle we could think of, and we just couldn't get it in there. The crowd started growing, people standing around watching us, some of them laughing because they figured we'd never get that in there. And the thing I remember that was so funny to me, there was an elderly gentleman standing there watching us, not saying a word, well dressed. He had suit and tie, and finally he very politely said, "Sir, may I make a suggestion?" I said, "Well, certainly, we are glad for suggestions." He said, "Why don't you put the car in the bass instead of putting the bass in the car?"
Just in case they don't know what a mini Morris is, I will show that.
You
Most
show
of
them.
you will, but maybe some of all you'll know is Mr. Bean's car.
I think they call it the Austin Mini usually in the States.
Okay, so that's what, 4 feet tall, maybe 4.5.
Yes.
Not much more than that.
And but anyway, we worked, and finally, this string bass, the post on the end which raises it
The end pin.
for a few inches, the end pin was permanent on that one. It wasn't adjustable. And so finally, what we did, we had to loosen the strings, take the tailpiece off, which connects to that post, and then we forced the post out of it, and we managed to get it in there and got it up to Burgos. But
So
that was
where did you sit, or who was driving, or?
no. We put the neck of it up on the windshield.
Oh, okay, so you could sit.
And
Okay.
yes, so we managed to get it up there.
Okay.
But it was quite an experience for us. Let me share a story with you, which was just rather fascinating to us. We took that year of 1972. When we left Chile, we sold Margaret's accordion. We couldn't take everything we had in Chile with us to Spain, and I just imagined that the accordions would be less expensive in Spain than they were in Chile. But when we got to Spain, we found that they were expensive, and the cheapest one we could find that would serve the purpose was nearly $500. I think $450 to $500, and so I had, during the time between Mexico and Chile, when I had studied music, and I was teaching accordion piano and tuning pianos to support the family during those 2.5 years. And I'd gotten in touch with an Italian accordion factory. So I got the idea to go to the Italian Chamber of Commerce.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
I just asked, what's $500 in 1972? What is the equivalent purchasing power today?
What would
Give
it
a
be?
guess.
$2,500.
Well, I would never have said that, but it says $3,300.
All right. Well, that
Wow.
was the idea.
Okay.
So, I went to the Chamber of Commerce, and I'd had a card from the music company, Pecknell Music Company in Greenville, that I'd worked for, and told them that I wanted to go to Italy and find out about accordions, and so they gave me some gas coupons. Gasoline is very expensive in Europe, but they gave me gasoline coupons in that I was going to an accordion factory. And so we got our tent, and we made it a, let's call it a business vacation. It was a family vacation, but going to look for an accordion.
So they gave you money for gas just to visit their country.
Right. It did not completely pay for the gas, but it was lowered
Reduced
it
the
to
price.
less than half of the price. But anyway, we started our trip then to Ancona, Italy, on the eastern coast of Italy, south of Venice, yes. And so we went there, but on the trip there, three things stand out in my mind. We would put the tent up every night and then drive all day and then find another camping place. Camping was big in Europe and in the 70s, and it was considered a safe way to have a vacation. So we got to Foligno, Italy, no, to Bergers, Italy, and we saw that it looked like a storm was coming on, so we found a camping place, and I went in to try to get a spot for the tent. He said, look, I would normally say no because we're actually full. He said, but a storm is blowing in. He saw that we had a family. He said, if you can find a spot big enough to put your tent, put it up and do it fast because we've got a real storm coming in. So we got it set up, and I guess Margaret and I didn't sleep hardly a wink that night because of the rain and wind. The tent held, but from the strong winds, it had an aluminum frame which it warped, and so we had from then on a lopsided tent is what I would call it. But at least it kept us dry that night. Then we kept driving, and we stopped in Foligno, Italy, and I took my residence card into the office and told them we were looking for a place to put our tent, and she wrote down the information and all, and my passport and everything, and she said, your people are over that way. And I looked at her surprised, but I didn't say anything because I didn't know a soul in Italy. We didn't know anyone there. But when she said, your people are over that way, I went over there, and we heard a group singing. And it was actually a group from the Brethren Church They had set up a tent in Italy in preparation, in Foligno, in preparation for a church plant. They were having 3 weeks of meetings, and they were singing hymns that we knew, but of course in Italian. Well, we went over and joined them, and Margaret and I sang a duet in Spanish for
Really?
them. And they invited us to eat with them that night. And so I got Margaret and the 3 girls bedded down in the tent, and I went with them to the tent meeting that night. And they had already had 8 people had trusted Christ. And I'm just confident that by the time the 3 weeks were up, that they did plant a church in Foligno, Italy. Okay, from there we went on to the accordion factory then. We went to the Universal Studio accordion factory there. They didn't have an interpreter available, so between Spanish and Italian and English and sign language and showing them dollar bills, we came up with a price, and we bought the accordion for $165. The one that was going to cost us $450 or a little bit over in Madrid. And then we headed back toward Spain. Then the greatest event happened on their way back. We were in France, and not far from the Spanish border, and I of course do not speak French, but I was following the signs to a camping place, and I didn't realize that it was a seasonal camping place, and we were getting near the end of summer then. So when we got to the camping spot, it was closed. The gates were open, but the administrators and all were gone, and there were a handful of tents, 6 or 8 maybe, scattered around at different places, and we were trying to decide what to do. We hadn't set our tent up yet, and a car drove up beside ours and asked if we spoke English, and we said yes. And it turned out to be Frank and Debbie. And they said, well, we're not sure what to do. They said, why don't we just put our tents together and we can look out for each other. And they were from New York, and so we said, fine. So we set up our tents, and we started talking to them, and Frank had just gotten his master's in art. He was a painter from Yale University, and Debbie had just gotten her master's from Davis Art Institute. And they'd gotten married. They were basically on their honeymoon when they came to Spain. So we started talking to them, told them we were missionaries there. And he said, you know, I've never talked to a missionary before. But Frank said one of the decisions we made when we got married was that we were going to try to find a more meaningful religious experience. That's the way he put it. They both had a Catholic background. But he said, we want to find a more meaningful religious experience. Well, we talked to them some that night. The next morning, we got up and we're having breakfast, and they crawled out of their tent. And so Margaret said, let's invite them for breakfast. Now, we had packed as efficiently as we could for that trip. We had 3 glasses, one for each one of our daughters, and we had 2 cups, one for Margaret, one for me. But we invited them for breakfast. But we said, but you'll have to share a cup. They said, that's okay. So Margaret had, and I had 1 cup, they had a cup, and we had breakfast together. And they were just a delightful couple, we found out. Debbie was also a musician, a very fine violinist. But anyway, we told them, look, we live in a little town outside of Burgos, Quintana Dueñas. We gave them the address. They were going to Spain. They were going to go visit the Prado. They were on sort of a fellowship that Yale had granted him to visit art galleries in Europe. So they were going to go to the Prado in Madrid. So one morning they showed up, drove up to our house, and it was just like meeting old friends. They came in, we chatted. We spent the day together. Margaret and I had to go down. In fact, we had to take the girls for their swimming classes. You know, the twins had scoliosis, and they had told us that the best exercise was swimming. Well, there was a heated pool downtown Burgos, So we had to take them, and we were gone for a couple of hours. And we told them just make themselves at home. And when they got back, Frank said, "Do you realize what you did this afternoon?" And I said, "Well, we went downtown." He said, "But you left us alone in your house." He said, "We could have run off with everything you have." I said, "Yeah, you could have, but I knew you wouldn't." He said, "Do you leave your house open for everybody?" And I said, "Well, not everybody." And he said, "Do people ever take advantage?" I said, "They have taken advantage." I said, "But I knew you wouldn't." Anyway, we just had formed a real friendship. We kept talking to him about the gospel, going through the plan of salvation, how that it's Christ, it's not a religion, that Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no man cometh unto the Father but by me." And as we explained the gospel, Frank said, it's so logical. We explained our sinful condition, how Christ had made the payment. Anyway, they went to bed that night, and the next morning, Margaret and I were in the kitchen, and Debbie came in with a smile from ear to ear. She said, "Well, we did it." I said, "You did what?" She said, "We accepted Christ last night." They'd gotten down on their knees by their bed and prayed and asked the Lord to save them. Well, that was the second day. We had 4 days for discipleship, and I'll tell you, we just studied and as much as we possibly could with them. Finally, they said, "Look, we've got to leave." She said, "If we don't leave," she said, "I'm going to have to write my mom and say, 'Mom, we're becoming missionaries. We're going to stay here.'" We gave them each a New Testament, and years later, Debbie told us, she said, "I have that New Testament in my purse. I always keep it there." And by the way, we visited them 3 times in New York and later years.
Wow.
But anyway, they left after 4 days. Early in the morning, they had to go to, I think it was Santander. They were going to see some art there. Well, we were having supper that night, and they drove up again. Came back that night, and we were shocked, and they walked in with a sheepish look, and they said, "We left our passports on your windowsill here in the kitchen." So they had to come, and they stayed 2 more days with us. And it was just a wonderful experience. But you know, I've thought a lot about that. Frank said they wanted to find a more meaningful religious experience. You know, a religious experience won't take anyone to heaven. And I just explained to Frank over and over that Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me." Not through the Baptist church, nor the Catholic, nor any other religion. It's through Christ. And so that was our story for the more meaningful religious experience.
That was awesome. Frank and Debbie, well, I don't know. Hopefully, maybe somehow they could end up seeing the video and listening to their story from the other side. That's pretty cool. Okay, well, John said last night's was too short and that tonight's was supposed to be longer, so it was longer. I
It
think.
was longer.
Okay, well, let it go at that. I fixed the channel settings. I looked into it here on YouTube, so even if you click on the live stream, it won't take you to the live stream after it's done, but it will take you to a window that shows you the playlist. So that there was some confusion there. People weren't sure how to find them. So that should be fixed. I don't know if you can hear the wind, but it's blowing like crazy. And so I blew one door open already. I guess we'll let it go at that. Hon, you want to say anything? No? Okay. God bless you. See you next time.
Goodbye.